Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, April 5th. There's a little over 400 albums coming out this week. I got 12 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's a little over 400 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 12 on the show today, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up this week. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, I'll put links down below. All these should be available online. There's a couple of new releases coming out this week that I'm not hearing a whole lot of people talking about, and I'm really interested in checking both of these out. The first one is the new album from the Black Keys. This is Ohio Players. It's their 12th studio album. It's going to run you about $28 online. There's multiple variants that are going to be available of this one. There is a indie exclusive version. It's going to be on Apple Red vinyl. This is an album that, like I said, I've been looking forward to ever since it was first announced. I liked, Dropout Boogie, I think was their last album. Came out in 2022. They've been really active over the last several years. They ended their hiatus. I think it was like a 5 or 6 year hiatus that they had up until 2019. And then over the next 5 years, so in the last 5 years, this is their 4th album. So, like I said, very active, which is really cool. It's something you're not seeing a lot of bands do nowadays. A lot of times you're seeing bands, they'll release an album maybe every 3 years, maybe every 4 years. So it's cool to see 4 albums in 5 years from the band. Like I said, Dropout Boogie I thought was a really good album in 2022. And this is kind of along the same lines. Up until Dropout Boogie, the band hadn't used outside writers. They brought in outside writers on that album. They brought in outside writers on this one also. So I think it's given the band a little bit of a different kind of flavor to it. Like I said, I like the direction on the last album. So like I said, definitely looking forward to this one. I will say they released 3 singles off the new album. I've only listened to the first one, and I liked it. So like I said, I'm going to kind of hold off and check out the whole album once it gets released this week. And then the second album is a new one from Vampire Weekend, Only God Was Above Us. It's their 5th studio album. It's a 2 LP release. I think all the versions of this are going to be on black vinyl, but there's an indie exclusive. It's got an alternate cover. It's going to run you about $35 online. So this is the follow-up to the band's 2019 album, Father of the Bride, which is a different album than Vampire Weekend had done before, because that was pretty much just a Ezra Koenig solo project. He's the lead singer of the band. He kind of did that album on his own, and then the rest of the band came in and did the tour with him. Even though it was billed as Vampire Weekend, but it was definitely different than the stuff that they'd done before. So this is the first album the band has done as a 3-piece band altogether. Father of the Bride was a really good album. That was the album that got me into Vampire Weekend. It hit #1 on the Billboard 200. It's a pretty big album. This is definitely one I've been looking forward to. So a chunk of the songs off this new album were all written, or at least started to be written in 2019 and 2020, and then it took several years to kind of flesh them out and kind of get them to the final form that you get on this album. So like I said, both the new album from Vampire Weekend, the new album from the Black Keys, I'm definitely looking forward to both of those. So over the last year or so, Garbage has been slowly reissuing their catalog. We got another release from them this week. This is Bleed Like Me. This was released back in 2005. It was their 4th studio album. It's going to run you about $28 online. So this is all newly remastered. It's the first time it's ever been available on vinyl, which is really surprising because it was a big album when it came out. Hit #4 on the Billboard 200 here in the U.S. Sold a bunch of copies. But for me personally, the third album, the album that came out before this, which was Beautiful Garbage, had a lot more of an electronic feel to it than the first 2 albums. And I think they kind of lost me with that album. I know a lot of people love that album, and I'm not a big fan of that album. And I never checked out anything the band did after that. So it was probably within the last, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years I finally got around to listening to this album. And musically, it's a lot like it's more in line with their self-titled album or version 2.0. It's a lot more like a straightforward kind of rock album. It is really good. Is it as good as the first 2? Probably not, but I think it is a really good album. It's definitely one I'll consider grabbing this week when it comes out. So you got that one, and then you got the reissue of Waterloo by ABBA coming out. This was released in 1974 as their 2nd studio album. 2 LP release. So this is all for the 50th anniversary of the album. They're doing this half-speed mastered album from Abbey Road. It's going to run about $48 online, which is a lot, but it's kind of in line to what those half-speed masters are running. So whenever I see half-speed mastered at Abbey Road, what I started doing is kind of waiting until the album gets released, kind of read so I can read reviews and kind of see what the sound quality is on it, because they're really kind of hit or miss. I love some of the Has to Be Master stuff from Abbey Road, and some of them, like I said, just doesn't sound all that great. So I'm gonna wait and see on this release. This was a big album when it was released. This is the album that made ABBA who they were. The big stars that they were the rest of their career. The title track of this album has been a staple of the band. Hit number one in a bunch of different countries. I think it sold 3 or 4 million copies worldwide. But like I said, I'll kind of wait and see what reviews say about the sound quality before I decide to grab a copy. Couple really great jazz releases coming out this week. Both of them are part of the Blue Note Tone Poet series, which Tone Poet series, classic series, I've discovered so many incredible jazz albums from both of those over the years. The classic series, tends to be a little bit cheaper. The Tone Poet series tends to be about $10 more, but it comes in a really nice jacket. There comes this like deluxe gatefold. The presentation is really nice on them. They're always mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes, the Preston RTI. They're going to be just absolutely fantastic sounding jazz albums. But the first one is Horace Silver Serenade. This was released in 1963. So this is the last release in like a great series of releases from Horace. And by this point in 63, most of his band had been together since 59, and they're really at their musical peak at this point. If you're unfamiliar with Horace, this is a great place to start. He has a great lineup on here. You got Blue Mitchell, Junior Cook, Gene Taylor, Roy Brooks. Like I said, this is a great album. I don't have this one on vinyl. One of my favorite jazz albums of the 60s. Definitely one I'm gonna grab this week. And then the second one is Anthony Williams, Lifetime. This was released back in 65. This is the debut album from, at least in my opinion, one of the greatest jazz drummers of the 60s. I absolutely love this album also. It's another one I don't have on vinyl. I'll definitely grab it this week. But Tony had worked with a bunch of great jazz musicians over the years already. He'd recorded some truly iconic jazz albums. He'd worked with Miles Davis. He'd worked with Herbie Hancock, which Herbie's on this album also. He'd worked with Eric Dolphy. He'd worked with Jackie McLean. Like I said, a lot of great music he'd already done in his career. So it's cool to see at this point doing his own kind of thing. He's got a great lineup on here, though. He's got Sam Rivers, Bobby Hutcherson, like I said, Herbie Hancock's on here, Ron Carter's on here. It's the same thing with the with that Horace album. One of my favorite jazz albums, at least with all the early part of the 60s. Tony's an absolutely incredible jazz drummer. The next release is one I guess I don't really know what it is. I was a little confused by the description of it. But anyway, this Five Finger Death Punch carrying case, or carry case is what it's listed online as. But there's two different versions of this. So you can buy the case by itself for about $70, and then there's a deluxe version that is the case. And then it comes with a gold version of F8 and a copper version of Afterlife. That's going to run you about $145 online. So you're getting their 8th and 9th studio albums, which that's kind of cool as put this together for fans of the band. Where I'm confused about it, or where I'm confused, is if you go in the description and look at this thing, it says it holds about 35 albums, which is a lot for a box. And then if you look at the size of the box, it says it's only 17 centimeters. So it's like a little over 6.5 inches, which I think you can probably fit the 9 studio albums from the band in there, but not 35 albums. So I don't know why they listed it that way. But if you're a fan of Five Finger Death Punch, it might be a cool one to grab and kind of house your collection in, because it does look like a really nice constructed box. So you got that coming out this week. And then you got the reissue of Yellow No. 5 by Mustard Plug coming out. This was released back in 2002. It was their 5th studio album. It's going to be on purple vinyl. It's going to run you about $24 online. If you're unfamiliar with the band, they formed in the early part of the 90s, at least here in the Midwest. They ended up being a pretty influential ska punk band by the mid to late part of the 90s. They released some really great albums. I think their big album was probably Evildoers Beware, which I think is probably still their best album. But Yellow No. 5 is, I think, a really close second. It's probably, if I didn't go through it again, it's probably their most complete album. I don't think it has as big of tracks as Evildoers does, but I think it's still a really great album to go back through if you're unfamiliar with the band. And then the last 4 albums on my list today are all Billy Joel releases. The first one is Streetlife Serenade, released in 1974. It was his 3rd studio album. It's going to run you about $28 online. So this is the follow-up to his gigantic album Piano Man, which was his 2nd album. And I understand it's always going to be hard to follow up an album like that. And Billy's been really kind of critical of this album over the years. Said that he was under a lot of pressure from the label to crank out another album after all the success that Piano Man had. He said that musically it's a really good album, but lyrically there wasn't there wasn't a lot there. And I think that because of that pressure, that was probably kind of hurried through the process. And the album probably could have been better, maybe if they would have been able to take a lot more time to kind of work on it. But there is some really good stuff on this album that I've enjoyed for a long time. A couple really good instrumental tracks on there that I love. It's a really good listen. If you go back through, I think it's kind of grown on me over the years. But so you got that one coming out. I'll also say that was the last album that Billy Joel used session musicians on until River of Life came out in '93. So I think maybe that played a little bit into it also. But like I said, go back and listen to it if it's been a long time since you've checked out, because I think there's some good stuff on there. So you got that coming out this week, and then you also got the reissue of Turnstiles coming out, which was released back in '76. It was this 4 studio album. It's going to about $27 online. I think Streetlife, kind of soured some people on Billy Joel there for a while. And I think when Turnstiles came out, I think some of that mixed reviews from Streetlife kind of boiled over to Turnstiles, because it got a lot of really mixed reviews. But I've long kind of seen this as kind of a return to form album for Billy Joel. Is it as good as Piano Man? No, but I think there's some really good stuff on there. I think the varying different styles that he used on this album really kind of makes it an enjoyable listen. It's another album that's kind of grown on me over the years. That's one I'm looking forward to grabbing this week. And then the last two on the list are both live albums from Billy. The first one is Songs in the Attic, released in 1981. It's going to run around $29 online. So this is Billy Joel's first live album. It was recorded over a bunch of different dates across the U.S. in 1980. So what the purpose was for this album. So The Stranger was released in '77. Billy Joel got a bunch of new fans because of The Stranger. So what they wanted to do was take this live album and really showcase some of the stuff from earlier in Billy Joel's career that maybe a lot of those fans didn't know. And it is a really good live album, but it was kind of weird how it rolled out, because they did 5 different promotional videos for this for songs off this album, but they didn't actually use the live performances off of the album. The 5 videos they shot, I think one of them was shot in a studio, and the other 4 were shot at the same show, but none of the versions that were in those videos are on the album. So it was really kind of weird, but it worked, because it sold a couple million copies. 3 of the tracks off the live album were in the top 25 on Billboard. It was a big album when it came out. I mean, it is a really good live album to go back through and check out. But it's kind of weird how the rollout was for that one. And then the last album is Live at the Great American Music Hall, 1975. This was released in April of last year, but it was recorded live in San Francisco in June of '75. It was during the Streetlife Serenade tour. It's going to be a 2 LP release. It's going to run you about $38 online. This is a really interesting release because it's really showcases some of the great tracks from early in Billy Joel's career. It's got kind of glaring omissions, though. I'm surprised it doesn't have Piano Man in there. Actually, neither one of these live albums have Piano Man on there. But it's kind of one of those like staple tracks that I would expect to be on there. I haven't listened to this one. Like I said, it just came out last year, but I'll stream it and check it out this week. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. I'm definitely going to grab both of those jazz releases. Like I said, I love both of those albums. I'll stream the new Black Keys album. I'll stream the new Vampire Weekend album. I might grab that Garbage album. Maybe I'll grab that Mustard Plug. Get some question marks next to some of those releases. But let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.